Well, welcome to my new video. In this video I'm going to show you how to build this simple transmitter. Similar to the ones I've built before, but this one's got an amplifier stage on it. So it's got a bit more RF power. It's got a pre-emphasis circuit here. You got your oscillator here, your tank circuit, and an amplifier here, and an output stage here. Sound quality out of this transmitter, all the major, honestly. For a simple thing like this, it's very stable. Frequency hardly moves on a voltage drop. And it'll run from 1.5 volts all the way up to 12. I mean, I've had these working for a week, non-stop, and the frequency does not move. I mean, you can put a voltage regulator on it, if you wish, which I've done before. But doing a transmitter like this gives you the option of using 1.5 volts for a couple hundred feet range, all the way up to 12 volts if you want half a mile. Should we build it? Well, we're going to start by cutting our copper clad board. This is just some scrap board I've got hanging around. It's not a fiberglass board, it's I think it's a wood fibre. A bit safer to cut. Slightly thicker. Right, so what I'll do now, I'll just mark where I need to cut, and we'll get that cut. Right, there's the board all marked out now. So what we need to do now is cut it up. Right, let's get it cut. So I'll cut to size now. We'll dry it off, sand it down and get it glued together. Well, this is the board, all cut to size. This is obviously our ground. Here's our positive rail. And here's our little islands. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to lightly flatten them all down. Basically it makes the gluing down easier, and obviously soldering as well. So just give them each a rub. We'll come back after they're all done. Okay, it's all sanded down now. So the board's basically ready to glue together now. So what I'm going to do is just use some super glue. Don't put too much on, but put enough on that. Now that's a positive rail. So I'll put this to the right side out. Right, let's leave that to dry. Just be very careful when you do these, because you haven't got much time when you lay them down. They do stick pretty quick. You notice this one's bigger than the rest of them, but you'll see why later, because there's so many components that I've got to fit to it. Okay, our last one now. This will be the antenna pad. That's where we'll attach our antenna. Oh, there we go. All done. That's it now, ready to fit our components. Okay, before we solder the parts, what we'll do, we'll flux all the little islands and we'll tin it. So we'll lay some solder down now, because it makes installing the components a lot easier. Okay, let's have a look at the parts list for this transmitter. Here's our caps, there's 10 of them. Well, I think there's 12 altogether, there's another 2 over here. Our resistors. There's our trimmer cap for adjusting the frequency. It's a plastic tie to tie all the bars up. Antenna, 2 inductors. All the parts are very easy to find. There's nothing here that is going to be difficult to get hold of, because I know a lot of my subscribers actually build what I show. It's 2 transistors, they're both 2N3904s, very common. No RF transistors. Should we get building? Okay, let's get started. First part to install is C1. I've got to cut these to size. There we go. C1. Okay, C2 next. Next cap is C3. Just make sure you install this the way around. Now this should be a 4.7 UF. I've run out of them, so I'll be using a 22, which will be alright. The sound will be slightly bassier. That's C3. There we go. Up next is C4. Apologise if my hands get in the way. There we go. Next part is C5. Just use a bit of flux now because we're going to be going to ground out. What I should do is just put a bit of solder on the ground. There we go. The C5 is the one in. It'll be a bit tricky doing this, working around the camera. Not the only way while doing things, but there we go, there's the one. There we go. C5. I've noticed a small issue here. I've got to get 2 caps. One's a 100N and one's a 1N between the oscillator and the amplifier, but you can see there's a very small gap. So what I'm going to do is remove this pad and just move it to the right a little. There we go, just remove that pad. Slightly in the wrong place. So what I'll do is just move that right over right there. That's it, plenty of room now. So I'm going to have to let that dry and we'll resume soldering. Okay, the next 2 to install is, I think it's C8 and C9. It's the ones I mentioned earlier, in between the oscillator and the amp, the little amplifier buffer. Now this keeps the circuit stable and gives it a bit more RF power. Okay, what we're doing, store C8, the 100N. There we go. See, now I've just moved that pad over, now there's a little bit more room. That's quite awkward getting down there. That's got it. Right, that's the 100N. So what we've got to do now is, right next door to it, we'll install the 1N, which is C9. I mean, when you're building this, you don't need to do it in the order I'm doing it in. You can do it in whatever order suits you. I can't get all the caps in just yet because a couple of them are attached to the transistors, so I can't get them all in. There we go. Okay, next one is C12, which is a 100N. Just keeps the circuit nice and tight. It basically goes across the negative and positive rail. You can see that there, right on the end of this. There you go. I've just soldered it to the positive side, the positive rail. So what I'll do, the next part will install on the ground. I've just fluxed it just. There you go. See like that? Okay. Alright, I'll start on some of the resistors now. I'm going to do R1, which is the 47k, which is just across here. I've cut the resistors to size, as you can see. I know this ain't the ideal way of soldering, but I'm working around the camera, light, and everything else. There you go, that's one side. Soldered on nicely. There you go. Okay, the other one is the R2, which is also a 47k. There we go, that's one side. Lovely. There's two resistors in. Alright, next resistor is R3, the 22k. That's the sound input to the base of the transistor, the oscillator transistor. So I'll put that in quickly. There we go, one side. There we go. Okay, next resistor. As you can see, I've got the size, which is R4, which is a 68k. Now, if you haven't got a 68k, you can use a 47k, that'll be okay. But you don't want to go much lower than a 47k or much higher than a 68. There we go. Okay, next part to install is the first transistor, which you can see there is a 2N3904. I don't know if you can read that. I bent the collector leg and the base leg, and what I'll do, once it's installed, I'll cut this emitter leg because I need to put I think it's a 270 ohm resistor between the emitter and ground. Right, so we'll install that first. Just place that down there. I hope you can see that okay. Right, that's the collector leg installed. Right, now we're soldering the base. There we go. And I'll just cut that leg and we'll do the resistor next. Well, as you can see, I've cut the leg short. You can see that there. Got about 50% of it off. So what I'm going to do now is solder, what is it, R5. I'll solder that to the leg of the emitter. There we go. So like that. Just cut the other side. And what we'll do is just solder that straight to ground. A bit of flux. There we go. Part to install is the 10p cap. That's C6 that goes across the emitter and collector of the oscillating transistor. This is basically the feedback cap. Without this the circuit wouldn't oscillate at all, as you get no feedback to charge up the tank circuit. Alright, so we've just done the one side, which is the collector, and now we're just going to solder it to the emitter side where it joins C5, the resistor. Right, so hopefully we can get all this together. There we go. Don't want to get it too hot, but don't want to overheat the transistor. There you go, is that focused? Bang on, you see that across? Cool. Okay, next part to install is C7, the 33 cap. That's part of the tank circuit. Just get that in there. That's the one side out. Can you see that there, can you? Just up best focus still. Oh, there we go. See that in there? The next part now is the variable cap. This goes in between the coil and the 33 PF. This also makes part of the tank circuit. Oh God, where's my solder? I'll try and not get this too hot. Can you see that? There we go. That's adjusting our frequency. Alright, next part is the 5-turn inductor. This is part of the tank circuit also. Now, one of the most common mistakes when making these transmitters is people not scraping the enamel off the wire. That's if you're using this type of wire, but make sure you do scrape the enamel off. Otherwise it'll look in, but it won't work. Right, there's the one side. Right, that's the 5-turn coil in. Alright, next part to install is 10pf cap. That is C10. That goes from the output of the oscillator, tank circuit side, to the input, the base input of the amplifier transistor. I need to lower this one slightly down so it's out the way of the second transistor. See that? Just in one side. There we go. So that's resuming. There we go. Well, there's our second transistor to be installed. Just make sure you get them the right way around, because a lot of people build these and put the transistors in the wrong way around. So I've bent the legs to shape. There we go. That's the collector leg done. Next one is the middle one, the base. There we go. And the second one, the third one, sorry. Just use a bit of flux because this is going to ground. There you go. There we go. Well, this is the last resistor, which is R6, the 47k. That slides in between the collector leg and to the positive rail. Another one side. So the next side goes to the base of the amplifier transistor. It does get a bit closer, but just make sure all your parts are well away from each other and not touching. As you can see, that's pretty close there, so we'll just move the resistor down a bit. There we go. See that now? It just fits underneath, look. There we go. Alright, next part is the 1 UF inductor. It's a second inductor. You can see like that. Right, I might as well stand that up then, because this little pad's a bit close. So what I'll do, I'll stand it up. This out filters any RF going from the amplifier stage back into the positive rail. There we go. Alright, next part to install is C11, which is a 33pf cap. That's from the output of the collector of the amplifier transistor, and that will end up going to the antenna. That's the one side. Oh, you can see that, okay. So that. There we go. Okay, next we've got to install the battery connector. Bit of flux on the ground, remember, does help. There we go. What I'm going to do next is install the input lead. Just a standard 3.5 inch stereo jack. Obviously this is a mono transmitter. I think the yellow is the ground, red's left and white's right. Before I do that, what I'm going to do is drill 2 holes into this board, because then I can tie it down them, so then the wires don't get fatigued and break. So let's get some holes done. There we go, I have 2 holes there now. Okay, let's get the stereo lead done. So flux for the ground. There we go. So remember, our yellow is ground. So red is our left. So it's a bit tricky doing this soldering while I'm working around all this. There you go. Alright, to secure this input lead, the audio input lead in, what I'm going to do now, the holes I drilled earlier, I'm just going to put some ties around. Here we go through here, like. There we go, there's the one. There we go, I'll just cut that down. Okay, we're almost done now. So what I'm going to do now is install the antenna. So if you've been following this circuit, you should know where that goes. It goes on the outputs. Oh, C11 was it? I think it was C11. Yep, C11. No, which is here. There we go. So there's antenna in. Now the longer you have these antennas, the much more stable these transmitters are. Well, this antenna is about 165 centimetres. Now if you half that, these become quite unstable. So just keep that to about 160 to 170 centimetres. Right, so what we'll do now, we'll just tie these wires up. There we go. You want to keep them as short as possible, especially the power leads. Keep them leads as short as possible. You'll lose a lot of RF if you have these. You might be tempted to have a much longer power lead, but don't. Just keep them as short as you can. There we go. That's it, all done. What we'll do now, we'll test it. I'll check everything first before we test it. There you go, there's our input, our antenna, and our battery connector. Well, it's all looking good. There's a circuit complete. Not a bad job. Don't look too scruffy, does it? It's a very simple circuit. Got a pre-emphasis system here. The pre-emphasis circuit is needed. Otherwise you'd get a lot of saturation and distortion in the audio. So this just cleans up the signal. These 3 components, the inductor, the trimmer and the 33 PF, they make up your tank circuit. Generate your sine wave. Your audio then manipulates the carrier wave through the base of this first transistor, the oscillating transistor. The signal then is fed through the 10p cap here into the base of the amplifier transistor here. I mean, I know I've used two common transistors here, the 2N3904s, but ideally, I mean, if you've got some RF transistors, use them then on the output stage. But they are getting quite rare now, but I've got a load of these, so I'll just use common transistors. I mean, this circuit will work from about 1.5 volts, amazingly, up till about 12 volts. I mean, if you're going to use anything more than 12 volts, you're going to need a load resistor on the output transistor on the emitter side. So put a 100 ohm resistor there, otherwise this will get very hot and you'll kill it. So the signal comes in from the output of the collector side of the second transistor, then it goes through your cap here and out through your antenna. Well, they're quite effective circuits. Well, we'll test it and see how it does. Okay, after all that, does it work? Here's my frequency counter. You've listened to that many times. Alright, should we plug it in? We're going to use 3 volts to start with. Well, we've got no magic smoke. There's 2 A's. Alright. Yep, bang on. 101.6 megahertz. Just get that on my radio. Yep. Yep, we are bang on. Yep, that's definitely working. I'll put some audio in a minute. Yeah, settle down to that. 101.6. Cool. Alright, shall we see what difference the voltage makes? Alright, so it's 101.6. It'll stay stable. Alright, what we'll do now is stick 9 volts in it. Let's see, it's gone off. Well, hasn't gone up a great deal, has it? Considering I've just put 9 volts in it now. I mean, using a battery like this, a 3 volt battery, you're going to get easily 500-600 foot with a decent FM radio. And believe me, I've done identical ones to these before. The frequency has stayed bang on for about 6-7 days, just using 2 decent batteries. I'm not kidding now, the frequency will not move. I know, I've built these before. I actually sell them with regulators built in them, 5 volt regulators. I run them off 5 volts. But this gives you the option of using anything from 1.5 volts all the way up to, like I say, 12 volts. So you got the option. More voltage, more power. Alright, shall we see how much power it's got? So plug it into there. Okay, we've got 3 volts of power in. And we'll get about 3, just over 3 milliwatts of power. It doesn't sound a lot, but it's a hell of a lot more powerful than lot in Balkin 2s. You can buy in Balkin 3s. It's probably 100 times more powerful than one of them. So you're going to get a good few hundred feet of transmission out of this. Alright. What I'll do, I'll stick the 9 volts in that. Why? That's 23, 24 milliwatts. Now believe me, I've tested this sort of power out before. If I use this antenna upstairs, I'll just loop it over the bedroom window. I'll go out in my car and I'll get well over half a mile out of that. Easily. Now, should we put some audio in there? Okay, time to test the audio. That's plugged into the back of my DAB radio. Now what I'm going to do is run this off 1.5 volts. See that? One side no battery. Just got the 1.5 volts going in now. So we're going to run it on very low power. just to show you how effective the circuit is. There we go.
My mate's addresses.
There we go.
You know a lot about me.
It's on Radio 5. I don't want any music playing because of copyright rules on YouTube.
By the way, this is you guys, the two of you, Equitas and Taylor Smith Forensics, your private forensics companies.
That sounds alright, doesn't it?
My guest in the first hour was talking.
Go upstairs, see if we've got the range.
For 30 years, and for much of his career, it was all owned by the government.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got to go. We're going to Michael Gove now. Sorry, I was going to go on to a very important point, but perhaps one that's a little too technical and tedious anyway.
That's quite amazing, isn't it?
We'll get into the more exciting area of analysing evidence after we've heard from Michael Gove, who's making this, what he has called, important statement to the Commons.
Keeping our children safe and ensuring our schools prepare them
Oh, we're upstairs.
could not be more important.
Look at that fault signal. That's on 1.5 volts.
Allegations made in what has become known as the Trojan
I mean,
horse
if you don't need
suggested that
the
children were
distance,
not
just use 1.5 volts. I mean, if you know, the more voltage you put in, obviously, the more transmission range you're going to get out of it.
Their reports and other relevant documents have today been placed in the
But it's quite surprising how well it works from 1.5
Let me
volts.
set out their findings and my actions. Ofsted states that head teachers
Build it yourself, a lot of my subscribers do.
campaign to target schools in order to alter their character
There you go, look.
and ethos with a culture of fear and intimidation. Head teachers who had a record of raising standards out of their job. One school leader was so frightened about speaking to the
There we go,
authorities
look. Touch the
the
antenna.
meeting had to be arranged.
Just the battery, no problem at all. It's a very stable circuit.
Ofsted concluded that
I can even
governors are
touch the
trying to
ground plane.
propose and promote
If you touch the sound circuit, it will go.
ideology on non-faith schools, specifically by narrowing the
But everywhere else on the circuit you can touch.
manipulating staff appointments and using school
Quite amazing, quite stable transmitter. And like I say, that battery there will last a long, long time. If you put an alkaline battery in that, it's going to last weeks.
12 were found to require improvement.
Well, build it yourself.
Remaining 6 are inadequate and are in special
Please
measures.
give us a thumbs up if
Let me
you've
explain
enjoyed
why.
this video.
At one secular primary school,
Obviously to change frequency,
just white prostitutes
we just turn this trimmer around, we'll get about 18 megahertz
were used in Friday assemblies
out of that, like
exclusively by Muslim staff.
18 megahertz adjustment.
The school organised visits to
You just, obviously it's a metal screwdriver, so it's going to
Muslim pupils.
interfere with the tank circuit.
That a madrasa had been
Well,
established
hope you enjoyed that.
and been paid for from the school's budget. Ofsted